Welcome to the, I guess, kind of a random episode of the Comic Binge podcast. I am one of the people on the show, Paul Herman, I guess, and I'm brought here with me, a good buddy of mine named Adam. Adam, Mr. Ridgetop.
Hey, everyone.
Adam, where are you from?
So I am from the website of AVP Galaxy, and the last time we were on doing one of these things together was shortly after the announcement of the fact that Marvel was going to be getting the Alien, Predator, and AVP licenses. And it was very much a shock to us when that came out. But, you were much deeper in the Marvel scene than we were.
Yeah.
I had never really read too many Marvel comics consistently when I was young. I mean, here and there I did.
Sure.
But I thought it was a really good conversation. So,
it was great.
Now we're a little more than half a year later, and we finally have the release of Alien 1.
It came out a lot quicker than I thought, to be quite honest. I thought it'd be a little bit longer for some reason, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I kind of figured they'd time it around Alien Day, which is April, which is, I guess, around when the second issue is going to be dropping.
Yeah.
So, and it seems to have been doing pretty well. I think on Comixology, Aaron was telling me that it's been doing well. When I went to my local comic shop, Black Cat Comics in Salt Lake City, they just had this big pile on the desk. And I was like, well, how's the comic doing? And he said, well, this is our second restock. So apparently it's been doing pretty well.
Never underestimate the power of a jumping on point, a true jumping on point. So, I mean, comic books and Marvel and DC are always trying to create that ground floor for people to jump on into. And it's hard to do it naturally and I think authentically because we've been burnt out so much from like, here's a new number 1, here's a new Spider-Man number 1, volume 25, issue 1, kind of a thing. And so we've been burned, I think, as comic book fans, as the mainstream comic book fans, you could say, a long time for a natural ground floor jumping on point. I think this is the first legitimate, in my opinion, again, I don't want to insult the hardcore, mega hardcore Alien and Predator fans from the Dark Horse days, saying, but I think this is the first true jumping on point for a lot of, newer fans to be able to kind of get in on this Alien stuff early. And just like we talked about on the show last time on AVP Galaxy last summer, I said, with Star Wars was a lot of people use this to jump on and get into the series. And funny enough, they got an artist from that same era of Star Wars comic books, so Salvador Larroca. So, I mean, it was, you can't underestimate the power of that. And I think it's been obviously, I want to say Disney, but it's Disney or Fox Studios or whatever you want to call it. Fox Studios have been a little bit more, there seems to be a plan about launching and
there seem to be things happening with the properties. Yeah. Beyond just the comics too, we know there's a Predator film coming, there's an Alien TV series in development, there's a new video game coming, so it does seem like they will be utilizing the franchises, which is it's good for us because we didn't know that for a while.
We didn't.
And now we're seeing like Disney Star, their Canadian, we have the Disney logo like on an Alien trailer. And I was like, whoa, I thought they'd be like steering clear of that. Yeah. So it is good to see. And it does feel like this is a event, I guess. Just the fact that we've had so many variant covers with this, some of them really good covers too. And you can definitely tell like Marvel, they are the big dog of this market. I've loved Dark Horse and what they did with the property for many years, but it does seem like the comics are going to have a bigger reach under Marvel. Oh, yeah. And I do not remember this many variants ever for a comic for Dark Horse. And some of them are like there was one that was like a $250 or $150 just a Starfield, and people were really making fun of that one. And I was like, this must be a comic collector thing. Like I know nothing about that, but I'm like, really? Just a cover with stars is going to be $150? Okay, then. But
rarity, man.
But some of the variants I picked up, and I do think they look great. Mm-hmm. But I mean, why don't this is your show here? Why don't you tell me how you felt about the comic itself?
Well, before we get on with that, that's a good segue. But really quickly about variants, dude, this is you've just begun with the variants. If you've never experienced as many variants, welcome to the mainstream comic world because it is all about variants right now. It's been like that way for a long time, and it's starting to. I wouldn't say it's getting worse. I don't mind it. A lot of people get upset about the variants. They say it's kind of like the mid '90s with the gold variant covers or gold covers or whatever. And this is a little bit different. This is a tailoring specifically to a group of collectors, and I don't think it diminishes the product at all. It definitely, people can fight over variant covers all they want because I don't care about them. I care about the story, which is what you brought up. Like, how do I feel about the story? So, first of all,
yeah, no, just to
go ahead.
Object here. I like variants. I mean, Dark Horse had their variants too. I think it gives a great opportunity to see the work in this property by other artists that are not working on that line. Yeah. And there have been a number of variants here that I feel have been pretty strong. And I would like to see more from those artists in these properties in the future.
Yeah. So we're reviewing the new issue of Alien from Marvel Comic Books today. It's written by Philip Johnson, right? But yeah, it's Philip Kennedy Johnson. And the much controversial now, as I'm understanding it to be, the Salvador Larroca. And so first of all,
and we have the colors. I do want to give a shout out to the colors here by Guru EFX. I guess that's what they go by. But I thought the colors in this were pretty well done. Oh yeah. So I do want to give some props to that as well. So because I know Larroca, one of his controversies in the past was some things he said about a colorist that was working with him. So at least in this comic, I don't see anything wrong with the colors. I do have some reservations myself about Larroca's art. But as you said, we'll get into that.
Well, and so I think that's, it's really interesting to think about this as a book. And for the record, I don't know if you were listening to my other videos. I have these short view videos where I kind of review a comic book and I kind of break it down in 3 sections: the characterization, plot, the storytelling and art, and the fine details, the lettering, the coloring, the inking. And those are the unsung heroes of comic books. And the coloring in here is you bring up a great point. This is phenomenal coloring. This is what makes, I think, the art, in my opinion, it work. And again, you need a good artist. If it's black and white, it'd still be okay. It'd still be fine, but the colors really make it pop. And I think that's what, I love about the comic book medium, is that sometimes it's a lot like music, in my opinion, where it feels like you can strip it down to be just an acoustic guitar, right? It's black and white comics. Or you could do, layer track upon track upon track upon track and have a million different things going on and it be a beautiful thing. And that's what it feels like with coloring. It very much can be this, really emphasizing so many different things at once, and it kind of makes a beautiful picture. And I think here you bring up a great point that really these colors pop. But yeah, it's written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. And I'll be honest, I did not really pay attention to his name really at all until literally the last 2 months. Because I don't know if you knew this, Adam, but Philip Kennedy Johnson is also writing Superman.
Oh, did not.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he just started writing Superman a few months ago. And I had no idea. And that he was the same guy writing Alien. And I thought that was very, very interesting that the same guy who's writing a Superman comic book is writing an Alien comic book. And I was thinking, and not a crossover, right? This is 2 separate things.
Although there have been crossovers.
I'm aware, but I'm just saying it's the first time that I want to say that like 2 different writers are writing, or the same writers writing an ongoing Superman and an ongoing Alien comic. It's kind of bonkers. Like, and I immediately said to myself, okay, I got to pay attention to this. And because of Alien, right? I'm going to read Alien. And then the Superman comics were coming out, Future State. I liked them. Okay. I read 1 issue, the House of L issue, which was phenomenal comic book. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And I could not wait to read this Alien comic book after that. So I was very much anticipating it. And I know that a lot of people aren't huge Salvador Larroca fans, even though that Marvel's put him on a pretty big book. And he's obviously does something right. So I want to get into
that. He
that.
makes his deadlines.
Well, we'll get into that too. But we'll stick with the story and let's keep it. What I like to do is try to keep it spoiler free so people can still enjoy the book. Okay. So because I want people to
will avoid spoilers then.
As much as we can. Again, little bits here, maybe there, but either way. So overall, art, coloring, writing, inking, lettering, all that stuff. What do you think of this book, Adam?
So the story has me intrigued because I feel like there's some elements, especially in relation to Weyland-Yutani, that are kind of flipped from what we typically expect in these comics.
Yeah.
And the people who are going up against Weyland-Yutani, we have certain assumptions of them based on comics that I've read before that are different in this. And it's kind of an interesting twist to see where this goes. We have the personal drama with the father character, Gabriel Cruz, who has some PTSD from an event he suffered in his Colonial Marine days. And then after those, he became head of security on Epsilon Orbital Research Station, which I guess is another Earth orbiting station.
Yeah.
And we kind of start off with him playing through this event with his therapist, who's a Bishop model android, which was pretty cool to see.
That was rad. That was so rad.
But yeah, so the story does have me intrigued in terms of the premise. I was expecting something a bit more safe, I would say. Mm-hmm. Just like your kind of typical, we're on a colony, there's an outbreak kind of thing. So to have the drama with his son and talking to the therapist and everything in relation to the company and the people who want to take the company down. There's some things at play here that I think have potential that are pretty interesting. I will say like I said, the coloring is really well done. LaRocca's art, I'm just not a fan of, and I think part of that is based on some incidences in the past that have come to my attention. Whether that's a fair criticism of this comic or not, I don't know. It's just for me. Personally, when I see some of the stuff here, for example, I recognize things a lot. I'm an art student, so like his future car is like a Toyota concept car, and so I'm like, that's going into production in 180 years. The shotgun is a contemporary SPAS 12. The space station changes its look completely 3 times in the comic when it has the establishing shots of it. So there are a couple moments where I'm like, and of course the big glaring one that's been going around the community is the opening shot of all the aliens in the beginning, which are very obviously heavily referenced NECA toys. And I think Tristan Jones, who is very much in recent times become one of the most respected alien comic artists. He worked on a number of the Dark Horse comics. He pointed some of this stuff out because I don't know if you're familiar with the situation with Greg Land and the Marvel Omnibus and the cover with that.
Yeah, I've heard about Greg Land.
His work got swiped, and there was a lot of stuff that we as a fandom didn't really notice before was happening in comics, but swiping as a whole history as I discovered. And even in Dark Horse, I've been finding some stuff in the more recent Dark Horse Alien releases. Like we just reviewed Alien, the original screenplay. And although the human characters and the alien are completely new and illustrated, I recognize the environments and the ships and the backgrounds were all just taken from concept art, from Prometheus, from Covenant, from even the first Alien. So I look at stuff like that, especially as an art student, right? Like I come at this with a whole, I've taken many art classes. And when I look at that, I think, well, you're taking someone's work and you're cashing a check on it. You're building on their work.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I don't see really any evidence of that so far in this, but there are some things where the art style is just so heavily referenced that it's like, I don't know if it's really working for me. Yeah. Especially some of the characters' expressions. I know I've really already dived into the art here when you just wanted my brief thoughts on this thing.
No. Overall, keep going.
Overall, I think it's, it has me intrigued. I want to keep an open mind. But I got to be honest, this was not the start I was hoping for Alien under Marvel. Because the art for me, like I feel like the writer has kind of a lot of the attention in recent years has been on the writer of comics, but for me, art is just as important as the writing. So, like what might have been like an 8 or 9 for me, if the art is not there, it's gonna knock it down for me, even if I'm really intrigued by the story and the writing, which I am.
Cool. So, out of 10, what would you give this?
I
love how you already referenced it. I love you already got it.
Probably a 6, honestly.
What? Yeah. The art brings it down that much?
The art brings it down that much.
Damn, bro. Yeah. You harsh. But okay, first of all, I'm gonna admit right now that I'm not as in tune with like the swiping controversies, and not because I don't care. It's just I didn't know it existed until recently. As far as with LaRocca, like trust me, I've read all about swiping from, you could call it homage, if you will. In some cases, people say for some writers, artists, and things like that. I mean, even Bob Kane, for God's sakes, like Batman's famous picture on Detective, whatever it is, that's from like Michelangelo or something. I think it's like a completely ripped off. The pose and everything is from Michelangelo.
It's always weird because it's like, where's the line, right? Like between homage, between this is pretty heavily referenced, or this is outright art theft. And sometimes those lines are blurry.
It is. Listen, with LaRocca, I'm not going to defend him to where I don't know what he's done completely. And Greg Land, I know, has been notorious for, amongst other things, swiping, things like that. What I will say about LaRocca specifically is that guy, you mentioned something earlier. I'm not sure if we were recording or not when we said it. I think we were, but maybe not. Is that, he can hit a deadline. And you're right to an extent. One thing I will say probably on this show, and I will say forever about comic books, and it's something that I've discovered the last 2 or more of like 5 years, I'd say. At least, like, I've always kind of known it, but it just I didn't really process it in my dumb brain. Is this, that to be an artist and to be a good artist in comic books, you can be an average artist, but if you can tell a great story, that's more important. Because there's so many great artists out there that they can't be comic book artists, because 1, they can't hit a deadline, and 2, they don't know how to tell a story. And you have to know how to put the panels, how to set something up, make one panel bigger and one smaller, and how to have big impact and the anchors of the page. All of that goes into an account for the artist as they're developing the story. I mean, you go back the old Marvel way, which I don't think the old Marvel way was basically, here's a plot, go, draw 22 pages and figure it out. That's what they used to do. That's what Jack Kirby used to do. LaRocca's not doing that, I'm pretty sure. Most people, the writer writes a script and says, here's the panels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. I mean, there's probably some, collaboration, things like that. But for the most part, it's going to be, here's the amount of pages, or here's the amount of panels. Here's what needs to happen in 1, 2, and 3. And it's very standard. Now, with that said, there's probably a lot of flexibility around amongst the artists. So, he can pretty much decide a little bit of what needs to go, what needs to, happen, and that kind of thing. LaRocca, even going back to his Iron Man Matt Fraction run, which I can tell you right now is maybe the best Iron Man run outside of the Demon in a Bottle storyline. There's not, at least for me, I can't think of a lot of tracing, photo stuff that I can see from that era, because that was right after Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man.
I've seen people really praise his old X-Men stuff.
Yeah,
from LaRocca. Mm-hmm. And I will specify, I don't think all the criticism with this issue should be levied at the artists. I do feel this is a problem within the industry itself, and a lot of that probably comes down to crushing deadlines and stuff like that. I do feel that there are some artists where they've had more egregious examples of this than others. Greg Land being a prime example.
Yeah, Greg Land's a little bit more.
But I know LaRocca with Star Wars, there were a couple panels of his that were just like the exact same blocking of Vader and Luke, where you could tell like their faces were kind of photoshopped onto his illustration. So different artists work different ways. I know the first time I ever noticed this was in the big Prometheus Fire and Stone arc, where it was Patrick Reynolds' art in Aliens Fire and Stone. Mm-hmm. And he didn't do any art theft as far as I know or anything like that, but I recognized his aliens. I was like, these look like NECA figures. Like their hands are like exactly the same finger poses in each panel, and the movements look kind of stiff. And sure enough, I saw the way he works is he'll have like his own photographic reference, and he'll take the figures and he'll collage them together, and he'll draw on those. And he's using his own reference. That's totally fine. That's his process as an artist.
Sure.
For me personally, I felt it was very limiting in terms of, like, I want to see how the aliens move. I want to see an interesting take on the aliens. Like, I don't want to recognize an alien and be like, oh, that's a NECA toy. That's a promotional image I've seen before of this alien.
Sure.
I will say the one shot I did really like of the alien, we can't even really see it, is in the flashback of Gabriel Cruz, where you see the silhouette of this alien, which looks like some sort of hybrid that we're going to be seeing in a future issue. And that looked pretty interesting. But as far as like the big establishing shot when he's having the flashback with the big pile of aliens, that's been kind of, to be blunt, mocked online by a lot of fans, just because it's so recognizable that those are action figures.
For me, that stuff that doesn't bother me. Because again, when I read the comic book, like, sure, there's a lot of people in the Star Wars community that don't like LaRocca, and it baffles me because he put out some great work in there too. There is some clunkers in there, and there's a good like 6 issues or maybe even more than that where things got really weird. Like, I did not know what he was trying to do with this photorealism thing, whatever. That being said, his initial Darth Vader run was fantastic, I thought, for the most part.
I hear Darth Vader has had some really good ones.
Oh, it's great.
And there's Vader Dark Visions too, right? That's a different one.
That's different. I don't think he did.
I don't think he's involved with that.
No, he only did the first volume 1 with Kieran Gillen, which is another great writer. And even though I think the Charles Soule, the one after that, is way better, or not just way better, but just maybe some of the best Star Wars comics ever. LaRocca is a big reason why I loved that Darth Vader series, because he did a great job of emulating, I think, the things that were in the original trilogy. He also, was forced, and it wasn't his idea, but like the writer had to draw some really crazy stuff that I think he pulled off. For me, this comic book I thought was actually really, really good. Out of 10, I'd probably give this a good solid 7.5, to be quite honest.
It's been getting some positive reception. I think maybe it was Polygon gave it a really high review. I've seen some mixed reviews. I've seen some like, hey, you guys can skip this kind of reviews, and I've seen others that are really glowing and giving it praise.
I think the reason why I like it so much is that it immediately immerses you in the alien world if you're an alien fan. So like us, we know obviously Wayland and all that stuff, and Bishop. The Bishop thing was cool. The Bishop like counselor was a really cool touch.
I did like those scenes. Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch, especially when he's like, "I can transfer." Well, that's kind of spoiler too. It's not really spoiling.
Well, right. But yeah, just fine.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. He's transferring. He can, he's an android. He can transfer things around, and we'll just leave it at that. So, and again, mild spoilers is fine. I just don't want to get too detailed because I want people to kind of have a reason to read this book, man. I want people to read it because I think it's a good book. And I think the reason why I think it's so good is I like the art is solid. I don't think it's amazing. I think it's solid. But
I will say it was easy to follow what was going on in terms of the art. The scenes were presented in a way where it flowed at a good pace, I think.
Yeah.
I have read comics. One of the craziest comics I've ever read was a Witchblade and Darkness crossover with aliens and predators. And although I love the art in that, like, I thought the art was phenomenal, but I could not tell what the hell was going on through that whole thing because it was just all over the place.
Who was the artist? Do you remember? Was it Silvestri or Turner?
Let me find out real quick. Let's see.
While you're looking that up, let me explain a little bit more of the why I love this comic. I like this comic a lot. The reason why I like this comic a lot, for the most part, is Philip Kennedy Johnson is just really impressing me. The dude, I've read, literally, it's the 4th issue I've ever read he's ever written. Or for me that I have read. Okay,
so Mel Ruby did the pencils, and it was inked by Mike Perkins.
Mike Perkins, I know who Mike Perkins is.
Okay,
he's good, but the other guy, no idea. That was when I had ditched comics at that point. That was like early 2000s, I assume.
I believe so. Let's see.
Yeah. But Philip Kennedy
2001.
So. I know that era because it's like my forgotten era because I bolted. Comics were really weird then. They were. It was not a good place.
Is Top Cow still around? Are they still doing stuff?
I think so. I don't know. I think they are a little bit. Maybe I don't think they sold. I don't think so. Maybe they did. I don't remember. It's hard to keep track. But Philip Kennedy Johnson just really impressed me. And one of the things I think you would be able to agree to this, and you can tell me and slap me around if this is like this is already a common thing. I'm just being too obvious about it. But to me, what makes Alien so interesting is the human aspect, that is the human themes that are on top of the alien. Like the alien is the enemy, it's almost like they're the MacGuffin, right? But the themes that the characters are dealing with around them that you're bringing up, that's what makes Alien so good, is what the aliens bring out in those themes, whatever those themes are, whether it be trauma, whether it be, just
how
fear,
people act in like a survival situation.
Things like that. I mean, and I like how Philip Kennedy Johnson's taking that idea, and it's not like a new idea, but he's taking it and he's bringing it out in a different way. And I think that's what's really creative about this. And he's bringing that PTSD aspect, but it's more than that. And you don't really know exactly what's going on. So it's a little, it feels fresh to me, but also familiar, which is a very, very hard thing to pull off. Right. So, there was a couple of twists and turns here, like, especially towards the end, where I'm like, oh crap, what just happened? Again, no spoilers, but were you surprised what happened at the end? I was.
At the same time, though, this feels like a start. So I have to kind of elaborate. Like, when I give this a 6 at AVP Galaxy, like, we typically don't review a comic until the end of its run. And usually at Dark Horse, the comic was 4 issues, maybe 5. I know sometimes with a comic like Defiance, it went on a bit longer than that. I think that was around a dozen issues. Yeah. So that's one thing I'm really wondering about this, is how long these Marvel arcs are going to be. When I was growing up, I read graphic novels more than comics. Like, I would go into the comic shop and I would look at the graphic novels, because for me that felt like a complete story. With this one, I do plan to follow the individual issues. Sure. Mm-hmm. But even in recent years, I've just waited till a run was complete with Dark Horse, and then I'll pick up the graphic novel. I might still buy the individuals just as collector's items.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I wonder about. Like, is this going to be more like a long episodic kind of deal? Is that like more common for Marvel, or do they have their comics where it's like 5 or 6 issues and that's the arc before they move on to something entirely different?
Sure.
And I guess you could probably answer that. What's more common for them?
Well, I think for most mainstream, comic book outlets, not just Marvel and DC, it's mostly 5 or 6 issues, right? I mean, that's kind of the arc. Now, what I'm going to use, like I did on the show I was on last time, was Marvel, at least for Star Wars, they went ongoing for a long time. I think they stopped at 80 issues for the volume 1 or volume 2, if you want to say whatever. Just say volume 1 for all intents and purposes, 2015. But they stopped it because of Empire Strikes Back, because they're starting from A New Hope and then going on, and they stopped at Empire Strikes Back and they relaunched Jumping On Point again. I get it. But if I look at Darth Vader, the first, both series, volume 1 and volume 2, they stopped around issue 25. So it's not quite a maxi series. So a maxi series is like 12 issues. It's not quite a mini series. It's a little bit longer. Like the new Rorschach series is a maxi series. It's 12 issues. This hasn't been announced as a maxi series or a mini series. So it leads me to believe that, like you said, it is going to be a longer. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but you read this stuff, at least the press stuff, more than I do. So I'm curious. They haven't announced it if it's a miniseries.
I don't think they've announced it. No.
Yeah. So if that's the case,
what we know so far is 4. I think that there's the latest one you can pre-order is 4. So I'm wondering if this will be 4 issues or if it'll be longer.
It'll be longer. I'm almost guaranteed.
I suspect it'll be longer. But I'm also curious, like, when are they going to start other series? Like, when are they going to run concurrent? Because I know sometimes Marvel does that. Or is this a property that's niche enough that it'll go one arc at a time?
I think that's what. Yeah. Again, it depends. So if this series knocks out of the park and is huge and is selling like bonkers numbers, they're going to put out a different, an additional series. That's just reality for any Marvel comic book. You could have, if Squirrel Girl had, was a huge property, you'd have 3 Squirrel Girl series going on at once. But that's not happening because it doesn't have the numbers. Sorry, Squirrel Girl fans. No offense. Just for anything. I mean, unfortunately, that's just reality. So if this series does okay and it'll stay the course of one series, I'm assuming.
And that's typically what Dark Horse did too.
Yeah,
I think there were a few times they did concurrent stuff, or I know there's a couple times where they released like just as a paperback without even doing the individual issues.
Yeah.
They had to do that a couple times last year because of COVID, threw off their whole scheduling.
Yeah.
Which I got to say that was a real downer in terms of them having to rush through what they had left to do. They weren't able to complete their Predator original screenplay like they were their Alien original screenplay. I did think they ended on a real strong note with Alien versus Predator Thicker Than Blood. And I believe Jeremy Barlow was the writer of that one.
Barlow, he's a long time.
Jeremy Barlow, illustrated by Doug Wheatley.
Yeah, Barlow's been writing for Dark Horse for a long time. He wrote some Star Wars comics too back in the day before they sold to Marvel. I want to say Barlow, that was him. So, yeah, I think this was a good, solid start, man. And though I can understand why the art was more distracting for you, and I totally get it. But it leads me to be at least happy that you like the story enough to keep going, because if the story sucked.
The story intrigued me.
Yeah, you'd be like, "Ugh, this is gonna be a slog." Yeah. And I'm, as we wrap up here, I can't wait to have you back, because I think what I'm going to try to do is convince you, if you have time, to do issue 2 with me. Maybe we'll kind of. I want to get updated on this, because
I'd be happy to hop on next month.
Well, because here's the thing, man. I love what you just said. You said you usually just waited for the trade, and now you're kind of going along with I'm going to give this whole monthly thing a try. And here at the Comic Binge, I'm all about, like, I want to explore and give people an idea of, like, do you go monthly or do you go to the trade? Like, what do you like? Not just you, but anybody, right? If you want to get into comic books, like, what exactly is it? And I think one of the cool things about comics is that you could do either one or do both, like you said. So,
like, if you prefer graphic novels, it's totally fine to just wait. Or if you want the singles just to collect and not even to read, like, they are collector's items. So,
but what I'm intrigued by for you is that maybe you could get into the monthly format. Maybe this is your segue to that. I don't know. I have no idea.
Maybe. I think I'm just so curious about this big switch. And I'm sure this was the case when Star Wars switched too.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You have to understand, it's a big adjustment for us. We have seen many ups and downs with the comics through Dark Horse. And now this is totally different management. Yeah. But hey, I want Alien to do well under Marvel, regardless of whatever reservations I have about missteps with Land or LaRocca. Like, I still want nothing but the best for this property because I'm a fan of it, and I know fellow fans feel that way. Yeah. So I definitely want to have an open mind, even with this issue or with this run. I'm really excited about their omnibus books that are coming out, because there's some more rare inclusions that they're having there. And I think the first one drops maybe next month. I know it's not too far in the future. They're Alien 1. And
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not, it's funny. I don't hate omnibuses, but I'm not a huge fan of omnibuses. But the reason why is because it's so hard to hold them, at least for me. But you know what I'm into, and I don't know if they've announced this yet, but I'll probably throw down for this, is the Epic collections. If they make Epic collections of the Predator and Alien stuff, I'm all about it, because they've been doing it for Conan, they're doing it for Star Wars, and I am, like, addicted to Epics right now.
So what's the difference between those and the omnibuses?
Well, let me show you, Adam. I'm so glad you said something. I did this on the Spider-Man podcast that it was on. This is an Epic collection. Sorry.
Gotcha.
So it's what it is. It's either like like from issue 1 to whatever, or it's a collected story, one story. So this is Maximum Carnage, right? But they also have, like, just random storylines. Let me see if I can find out here. Like, this is a good one. Another Spider-Man book, because I love Spider-Man. Goes to the Past. This is like an era of Spider-Man. It's not like one story per se, but it's a bunch of different, comic books from that era collected. So either way, the Epic collections are just really nice because they're thick. There's a lot of books in them, but they're not like,
they're not like a tome.
Yeah. Like they're going to throw it at somebody and kill them, but so, and I just like the way they package them, because just like the omnibuses, they're like a special featured Blu-ray. They have tons of special things in there, like not just like the covers, but interviews, behind the scenes stuff from like
that's what I'll be really curious about with these, because all that stuff happened under Dark Horse. Like, how much are they going to include in terms of like those sorts of special features, or if it'll just be, here's them all reprinted.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'm gonna try to get you on next month, like you said. Well, I'm gonna curious. We're gonna travel the journey through with Adam here to see.
I can't promise I'll like where.
No. That's fine. I want to, but even more so, I want to see how you like the monthly format. I want to see the transition of like, I'll give it a shot to like, I really like it, or I hate it. This sucks. So give me the graphic novel now. I mean, because there's an interesting argument, which I think we're going to have at some point. Not argument, discussion, because I'm not going to argue that. I totally understand that. Is whether the monthly format is outdated or the trade paperback is the way to go, long term. I don't know. It's just something to think about, which I'm curious to pick your brain on, because I would say you're not a casual comic book fan, but you're not like a hardcore fan. So it's just, I would love to see your insight on it. Opposed to.
I am a hardcore fan when it comes to Alien and Predator.
Well,
and
right.
I was never big into the superhero comics, but I did always really keep up with with the Alien, Predator, and AVP stuff. Yeah, really just sci-fi in general. I mean, there were some superhero exceptions for me. I was really into Spider-Man. I still like Spider-Man. I've read some of the Batman stuff. There are some other big comics like Watchmen that I've got into recently. So I'm starting to kind of expand out and read more classic comics, like The Killing Joke. A friend of mine recommended that to me, and I had never read it before, and I really enjoyed it. So,
well, sir, we're gonna have to talk about that too, maybe sometime, because I got
nice.
that. So that
has a big collector's edition too, then, huh?
Yeah, absolute, baby. Absolutes are legit, dude. That they're better to me. Like the absolute editions. I could go on forever. I better stop now. You get me going. You should know. Last time we were there for like 3 hours, and I couldn't shut up. So I better stop now. But dude, thank you so much for joining me. This is like
thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. Please pimp your stuff, man. Please.
Yeah. So you can find us at if you Google search AVP Galaxy or Alien versus Predator Galaxy. We're on all the major socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or if you'd like to go directly to our website, that's avpgalaxy.net.
Yes, thank you. And please, if you're watching this video, please like it, subscribe to it, get me in that sweet algorithm that YouTube has so I can grow and all that good stuff, because I want to grow. But yeah, either way, I just want people to read comic books, and I want people to be welcomed and to have a safe place to where they can go and read comic books and feel like we're all on the same page as far as loving comics. It doesn't matter if you've loved comics all your life or for 1 week. We're all in the same boat because we're all the same and we all love comics. So anyway, check us out on Twitter at Binge Comic. Follow us there as well. And again, hit the like button, subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.
See you later.
Goodbye.